Hey there, I'm Brandon, and this is the Dirt Church Devotional. Let me ask you, do you have a favorite Bible verse? I ask a lot of people that, and I don't know, I guess I'm not really surprised the number of times I hear people say, yes, Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah 29:11, if you're not familiar with it, says this: I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to bless you and not to harm you, plans to prosper you, to give you a hope and a future. And that is awesome. That's great. I mean, there's no surprise that that would be somebody's favorite or a lot of people's favorite verse. But I gotta ask, do you know what it takes to actually acquire or obtain that promise, that blessing that God has for you? Because just because God has a plan and just because he makes a promise doesn't mean you're automatically, by default, going to get it. All right? Here's what it takes. It takes acceptance of God first, obviously, acceptance of Jesus Christ. But it also takes acceptance of his plan, all of it, not just part of it, and surrender to or submission to his plan, all of it, not just part of it. You can't just show up for the good times. You can't just show up for the cake and ice cream and think you're never going to have any difficulties. So, for example, I've got an example out of the book of Esther, and guys, you might have a little harder time relating to this than the ladies that may be watching this. But in the book of Esther, we see a young lady by the name of Esther whose parents have died. She's raised by her uncle, her cousin. Anyway, she's raised by Mordecai. And at some point, she gets called to essentially join the king's harem. Okay? Now, I don't know how many young girls actually dream about being a princess or a queen one day, but I do know this: most girls, most women that I've ever dealt with, and I've done a lot of weddings and counseled a lot of people for weddings and marriage and all that, most girls that I've talked to, they've got a dream about their wedding. All right, they know how they want it, the colors and the who's going to be there, and the dream man, their husband, you know, and they even think about the wedding night. Probably the guys think about that more than the girls, but they think about this time that they're going to give themselves, you know, their first time of intimacy with the man, and they work for that. They want that. They dream about it. Well, I'm sure Esther had the same dreams, the same hopes and desires, but guess what happened? She got called up because she was a beautiful virgin girl. And they basically said, look, you're coming and you're going to try and please the king. And if he's pleased with you, you might get to be queen. If he's not pleased with you, you're going to join the harem and be with all the other women. That wasn't part of her plan. She didn't want that. I mean, all she really knew about this king was that he had kind of a bad temper and that he was probably substantially older than her. I say he had a bad temper because the last queen, Vashti, she made him a little bit mad. She just refused to come when he called her. And he deposed her and wrote a law about how women ought to be obeying their husbands. And he was not her dream guy. Okay, and now think about this. She has no choice in this situation. She didn't get to pick her husband, her potential husband. All she knows is she's being taken away and being treated with all these beauty treatments for, 6 months or a year, being coached in how to hopefully please him in bed. And she knows she's got one shot at this. One shot. And if she doesn't please him, she goes to the harem, and she may never get to be intimate with him or any man ever again. All right, she's just going to be stuck hanging out with a bunch of other women that don't get chosen again either. Not really a great thought. And it was in the midst of this. Now, I shouldn't say in the midst, but after she goes in, and if you read the story, go ahead and read the book of Esther. It's a great book. She actually does please the king, and he falls in love with her, and he makes her the queen. And it turns out that there was a plan afoot to wipe out her people, which were the Jews. And she was kind of oblivious to it, so her uncle Mordecai lets her know what's going on, and she's kind of hesitant about doing anything. She's kind of freaked out about it. I think most people would be. And Mordecai says, in fact, I'm gonna grab it and read it just so I'm not winging it here totally. Mordecai says this. He says, "Don't think that because you're in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape." Verse 14, this is out of chapter 4. "For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish." What he was saying is, look, this is all part of God's plan. And you have an opportunity to be a part of it. Now, God's plan will not be thwarted. God is going to protect the Jews. God's plan is going to work, but you have an opportunity to be part of it. And if you choose not to, you won't see the deliverance. You're not going to make it. You and the rest of the family are going to die. You're not going to be part of it. Now, God had great plans for her. God wanted to bless her and to honor her and to give her all these great things, but she had to submit to his plan, and she had to submit to the whole thing, and she was already up to her neck in stuff that she didn't enjoy, parts that she didn't want. Now here's the last part of Mordecai's statement to her, and this is the one that everybody seems to focus on. "Who knows but that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this?" Everybody focuses on who knows. Maybe you came to this place for such a time as this. That's great, that's true, but it left her with a choice. It left her with an option. Am I going to completely submit to God's will? Because in order to submit to this, she had to approach the king, which was against the law. There was only one answer. If he didn't extend this golden scepter to her, the answer was that she dies. So anyway, she literally was taking her life into her hands. She was having a hard time with that, understandably so. But Mordecai understood, look, this is part of God's plan, and who knows, maybe this is exactly why you became queen. Maybe this is exactly why you had to be taken away from my house at a young age. Maybe this is exactly why you went through everything that you went through, all the bad parts, all the ugly parts. This was part of God's plan to bring about the good. And if you stop now, if you're satisfied now with just being queen and watching your people die, if you're satisfied now because everything seems good to you and you want to quote Jeremiah 29:11, God's got good things in store for me, but you're not willing to completely submit to the entire plan, that's all you're going to get. God's going to do great things, but you're not going to even see it. So let me fast forward and get to the meat of it. Things might not be going perfect in your life. Maybe the plans that you had have been falling apart. Maybe you're not having any fun at all and you're starting to wonder if you really like God's plan. Maybe you've been one of these that is submitted to God's plan, but just the good parts. You don't really want to surrender to him and be submitted to the hard parts. Can I challenge you? Can I encourage you? Submit to his plan, his whole plan, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He does have great things in store for you. He does want to bless. He does want to give you a hope and a future. So that's all I got. Chew on that for a while. If you like what you hear, well, share it. Let somebody else know. Maybe they need to hear this too. You have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.